Well met.
And welcome to our interview series where we sit down with real players of popular D&D classes to provide you with insight into the character building and development process. I'm Dr. DM.
And I'm the Mind Flayer Slayer. And this week we will be interviewing a
Warlock. How about you say we get started?
So you want me to tell you the story of my life? I'll tell you my story. I'll tell you all of it. I'm flesh and blood, but I'm not human. I haven't been human since I started playing.
From the channel that brings you adventures in green and garb. Interview with the Warlock. Without further ado, let's dig into today's episode where we're interviewing Kyle, who plays the Warlock in Descent into Avernus.
Yes, Hexblade Warlock.
A Hexblade Warlock. Okay, Kyle, why don't you give us a brief character bio, the top part of the character sheet.
Okay. So I am playing a Tabaxi Hexblade Warlock.
Wheel.
It's a snow leopard style, but not homebrewed, just the official Tabaxi, because it gets a addition to the charisma when character building, and warlocks are charisma-based spellcasters. So my character's name is Anatoly. I am from Barovia.
Barovia, the Shadowfell.
Yes.
So you have Tabaxi, Hexblade Warlock from the Shadowfell. So some relation with the Raven Queen, perhaps?
Yes. So I've chosen Hexblade, but we're kind of doing a combination because, as in much of the material, we've learned that it seems like or perhaps the first creator of Hexblades, these sentient magical weapons, was the Raven Queen herself. And so we've started to weave those threads into our story. But basically, I was in the Shadowfell, and another character from our party teleported to another dimension, and I went looking for them, and then I was attacked by another one of our party members when I broke into their college, and then I was stabbed by a sword, and this was a sentient sword that stabbed me, and it imbued me with magical powers.
That's right. And I think, according to the story, you were stabbed either in the side or in the arm, depending on which.
Depends on which episode you watch.
That's right, yeah. So it's always very important to make sure you are able to take your player's character, the Warlock, and weave that into the narrative. And if you watch Descent to Avernus, there's I think, a decent way when the DM does that. So let's talk more about Anatoly. And you give him his name. Any significance to the Anatoly name, or just a Barovian name?
So it is a Barovian name. We also had a cat named Anatoly growing up, and I named it after our cat because, yeah. Okay. So, but choosing the subclass was tricky with this one. When we started the campaign, I was actually playing a character called Giggles. Giggles.
The Raven.
Giggles the Raven, the Kenku.
Kenku?
And I hated him after the first episode. So I decided to take the Warlock part and throw it together with a different race, which was Tabaxi. We killed Giggles off in his heroic style.
But the bards did sing about him for quite a while.
For quite a long time. And so, yeah, now I'm playing a Tabaxi. I was playing around with the different packs to choose, and I felt like I play a sorcerer in our other campaign, so I wanted to make this more of a melee combatant, and I found that flavor in the Hexblade Warlock.
Very nice. Yeah, the Hexblade Warlock is not just based on Eldritch Blast, but also on
magical weapons, infusing your Eldritch magic into your weapons.
That's right. So you can create a weapon from the ether, basically.
From the ether,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
So you have a packed weapon. I have a packed dragon spear right now. Actually, I was initially working with an axe, but now we found a magical item, and so I'm using that now. Yeah.
Lucky player. What background did you choose? Also and why did that complement Warlock or Hexblade?
So I chose the performer background because it was part of the backstory that I woven together with the other member of our party, that we were kind of street performers and swindlers and things before we were split up and she was teleported to the other realm. And then it also gave me some boosts and some skill boosts. So I did strategically pick that, but we found a way to make it work with the background.
And let's move over to the left side, which is your typical Adventure League character sheet, which you'll see on the screen. And let's talk about ability scores. So where did you put your ability scores? What's your highest ability scores and lowest ability scores, and why?
So I put the most points into Charisma because it's a Charisma spellcaster. I put the next most points into Constitution. So I've got a 17 Charisma at level 5, a 16 Constitution, 10 for Strength, not really going to be making too many of those. Dexterity is 14, and Intelligence and Wisdom are 8. So we got that minus modifier.
Right. So we generally do in this campaign point by the official Adventure League, and the player's handbook is, of course, 27 points, I think. We went a little bit stronger this time, I think with 30 points. So there's ways to do it. Of course, you can always roll randomly with 46 or what have you. So it depends on your DM, but these are good things to live by. The Charisma is, of course, the ability modifier for Warlocks. It's a good choice to do. And it helps you with social encounters as well, with skill proficiencies, which we'll get to in just one moment. I think otherwise your stats are spot on.
Oh, so one thing, at level 5, I chose to take a feat because we're allowing feats in our game. And I took a Warcaster feat. As much as I would love to get that Charisma maxed out, I'm holding a shield, I'm holding a weapon. I need that ability to spellcast and not have to be putting stuff away every time. And it gives you an advantage on Constitution saves, which is huge.
Okay.
So yeah, let's go to saving.
Good, because if you have advantage on Constitution, if you get hit, you can still more reliably keep your spells up, or hex, or whatever.
Hex going. Yeah.
Just one thing I wanted to note though is that the reason why his strength is only 10 is because when Hexblade Warlocks, of course, you mentioned using the packed weapon before, when they attack with their weapon, a one-handed weapon only, they use a Charisma to hit instead of your typical strength or dex.
But then when you choose your packed weapon, it can be any weapon actually. When you choose packed of the blade.
Right. Okay. Packed of the blade.
Yeah.
Very good. So lots of strong choices to make a Hexblade Warlock good in combat, but combat is only half the equation, right? So let's talk about some skills. So what are your skill proficiencies? What did you decide to choose? Are you a big animal person, or? So
I've got proficiencies in acrobatics, deception, intimidation, performance, and sleight of hand.
Very good. Good choices. A lot of those are charisma based. Some are dexterity based. So Tabaxi, you have natural bonuses to the charisma and to dexterity. So good.
And let's go to spells.
Okay, let's go straight to spells then.
So first off, the invocations are really important. So I'm using Devil's Sight as my invocation, and I'm going to be, you can switch invocations when you level up. So I'm going to be taking another one soon, but the Devil's Sight allows me to see in magical and non-magical darkness. So because Hexblade Warlocks get the darkness spell, I can cast darkness and then wade into combat with all of the creatures around me having disadvantage on their attacks against me, and me having advantage on my attacks against them. Now, it has to be used strategically because darkness is pretty big and it can blind the entire party. But there are cases where I can be the scout and go ahead. I can see super far into the darkness, and no one else can see me. I took Hex, obviously, and I have Hexblade's Curse per my Hexblade subclass.
Right, and I think the good thing about Hex is that Warlock has a limited amount of spells per day compared to Sorcerer or Wizard. Sometimes just 1 or 2 spell slots, and so using spells that have a lot of use or a lot of replayability, I suppose.
Yeah, because it's a concentration spell, and it lasts for, pretty soon it's going to last for 8 hours.
That's right.
So I can hex a creature, when that creature dies, I can jump into another creature, and I can keep concentration on that spell. So, maybe a couple turns go by, and then I can just cast it onto another creature without expending another spell slot. It's still a bonus action, but it doesn't require recasting unless you lose concentration in your saving throw.
Which is possible if you're up close in melee. So yeah, you want to choose high value spells as a warlock because of the limited number of spell slots. But do remember, there's a warlock, you do get your spells back on a short rest,
which is really good.
That's right.
And I have a Rod of the Pact Keeper, which the Raven Queen gave me in the last episode, so I actually get a third spell slot, basically.
Uh-oh.
So that's pretty good for a warlock.
Yeah, I'd say it's good to have items tailored to your characters. So
yes.
Very important. I'm looking at you, DMs.
And I have Blur. I took Mirror Image and Shield. So I have a 21 armor class at this point. And we are level 5. Mm-hmm. So at level 5, to have a 21 armor class and have several abilities that allow me to be practically unhittable is pretty cool. The Blur combined with Mirror Image, while you can't do them on the same turn, gives you some pretty insane advantage.
Right.
So.
Which you'll need as a spellcaster that are generally weaker of constitution and hit points.
Yes. Any
advantage you can get to be up close, especially as a Hexblade, is great. So if you want to get into melee combat as a Hexblade Warlock, there's some good things to live by. Let's define your role in the adventuring party here in this case. So first, in the case of roleplay or social encounters, what do you find yourself doing? You enter a bar, you enter a tavern, or you're talking with the queen or king of wherever.
So as a charisma-based character, I have the second highest charisma next to Des, who's our bard. Mm-hmm. So we're both pretty strongly party heads. I'm good at kind of corralling our group. Sometimes we spend a little bit too much time in rooms. Mm-hmm. So I kind of act as the scout. I've got that 120 feet of dark vision, so I can be up in the front. I've still got the 21 AC shield spell if I really need it. So I can be up in the front lines, and I can try to get us from place to place. So that's how I function, I would say.
Yeah, I think Anatoly is a spearhead in the party, mm-hmm. and almost a secondary face of the party, let's say.
I've been having a lot of fun charging in. Okay. I really have been. We've had a couple flying creatures already, so I have kind of stayed back and just shot those Eldritch Blasts out, especially mm-hmm. at level 5 where you're doing the extra, you have the extra beam. Mm-hmm. But I like to get, it's a nice change from my other character, John, who is always hiding in the back casting Fireball. So
the Mind Flayer Slayer?
The Mind Flayer Slayer.
Okay, very nice. So yeah, getting in the mix of things is a good way to make sure the back line or your healers or your spellcasters can definitely still function without having to have disadvantages when they're attacking, or your ranged attackers as well. So one more tanky character up there that's not your most apparent tank is still, I think, a great asset to the team. As far as role-playing, what's one of the coolest or most interesting things you've done as Anatoly?
Oh boy. I would have to say I really, it's not necessarily something that's class-based, but my sister is in our campaign, mm-hmm. and I decided to, when I rebuilt the character, decided to have us be, basically street siblings. Mm-hmm. And that's been really fun. It's been fun to play off of her, because in the other campaign we have a pretty antagonistic relationship, right. And this campaign we're kind of just laughing along all the time. So I think that's been the most enjoyable thing.
Yeah, even if you don't excel, if your character sheet doesn't excel in anything social related,
don't use that as an excuse.
Exactly, make it work.
Go in there, dive in with the roleplay. That's what's mm-hmm. so great about 5e, is that it is so roleplay based. Yeah, and it just. I love grinding through a dungeon just as much as anyone, but when you're grinding through a dungeon and you're cracking jokes, and it makes it just fun for everybody, and that's the goal, just to have fun.
Yeah, and the roleplay Anatoly has a bit of a I want to say Russian accent
from Borovia.
Yeah. And yeah, I think your roleplay is quite good. Interaction with the party is great too. So, finishing up, describe your class in 1, 2, 3 words.
I was told I was not allowed to think of this ahead of time, which is difficult for me. But I would say sword slinging spellcaster.
All right. So this has been a interview with Warlock. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more guides like this. If you have any kind of advice for us as far as doing this, we wanted to give you guys and gals the opportunity to not only hear firsthand about a particular character class, but also learn more about the players playing the characters in our campaigns, or in the future, who knows what campaigns, any campaigns around the world, in Faerun or Spelljammer or wherever. So leave a comment, and thank you for watching.
Thanks for watching.
All right, Hexblade Warlock. Eldritch Blast.